I'll explain what happened to me when I went there. I got told to go to see the oracle. I ended up in a Moravian church service. Oracle ear. Anyway, Moravian, less birds, rightio. 28,000 feet, picked up some hitchhikers, edible shawls, woolens, Lamb of God, all that sort of thing. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Had to hitchhike on a truck to do something like the Lambda ride from Lae to Srinagar. You go downhill on a truck and it's a wild ride. It's all free-falling and cutting corners and danger and trucks in the bottom of the gully down in the river and sexual messages all the way along. But anyway, I get to Srinagar and I have to give up my sleeping bag to the truck driver. He washes his truck and I stay on a houseboat, and then I have to go to Sarapur where there are 1,000 springs. This is about annual cycles and about the lotus, which goes up and down, like the galaxy goes up and down in the universe, out of the warmth of the solar system, goes up and down in the galaxy and into colder places. So to do, these are ants trying to explain things to you. They've got this whole thing set up. I'm not the first person who's done that, I'm quite sure. But in Srinagar, I got turned away from the inn. I was with a young Kashmiri man, and they wouldn't let me stay there. So they have talked to people from Europe since they wrote the Bible. They must have, because they put the Bible into it. But anyway, I had to go and try for a visa extension and a gold headscarf. And again, that's Aurum, AU, gold. And I wasn't allowed to get one. I couldn't get a visa extension. I wasn't allowed to stay in Srinagar. I wasn't allowed to stay. I didn't want to go to Pakistan where it's dry. I didn't want to go out of the galaxy. I didn't want to go out of that trumpet. I didn't want to have an ice age. Okay, so then down to Jammu and then on a bus with horrendous music to Delhi. It was awful. Nobody could sleep. That would be when we are in our ice age. It was bloody awful. But anyway, we got to Delhi. More things happened. I got a good curry, and then I went to Rishikesh, so I must have come back in. Yes, I'm on the tight part of the trumpet, and I'm by the Mother Ganga. I go to an ashram. They're swapping B for V, and I've got looks of consternation. Why don't you say it like it's spelt? But these are the tits and these are the legs, so that is Mother Earth. This is Mother Ganga. This is the river, and this is the Lambda ride. It's like a river. We like fish in a river in a way. We're trying to explain how Earth travels through space. The name of the place I stayed with had a van in it at the end. The van. And I go, right, it's caravan. Then I must have a camel. I've gone back to the desert to talk about what? Camel. Why is it a camel? Three wise men, boy child, JC, El Nino. Peru, Chile, Tierra del Fuego. We're talking about this one. Okay, so I got it. I worked it out. Thank you very much. Had to go back to Delhi. But mind you, before I went to Rishikesh, I had to ask whether or not I could stay because I had to claim love for a Kashmiri boy. And this is about, there's a lover, the moon. The moon goes with the earth. We go together. We're talking about solar system and trips around the sun. I actually had to do that. And they just laughed at me. I don't know that they didn't know that I was being set up for this or not, but anyway, I dropped him and he flew back to Rishikesh and I had to let him fly. So anyway, that was before I went to Rishikesh, and then I went back and flew away. I went back to Delhi later on another trip, and I had to go into Connaught Place and go into the Connaught Place bank and do a transaction with travellers' checks and get them converted. But earlier the trip to Delhi went into a banker's house in Old Delhi, and it was a Roman court. So again, we're at Roman, and we don't row, we just float along the Lambda ride, and it's more like this. We just scoot along. It's a wild ride, but we're talking about fish, and that means Roman goes back to the Corrigal North Sea, and the sea sinking is born. Okay, so I had to have a roll of notes, and that's a tradition that goes back a long way, and that roll of notes, I'm quite sure, has to be a tight roll, and that's a tight roll in the body tight trumpet, military tight. And the whole message is, she banks. I had to go to a bank to do the roll. These are the trips around the sun. On the safe time, when we're in the galaxy and it's warm, we've got water, we've got fish. It's important we link water with fish, because water and the oceans are a dramatic part of us having life on the planet, which is water-based, and microbial life on the planet. There's no life on Mercury. There's probably no life on Jupiter. We support life on Earth. That's the point. Why we go to fish and why we go to water, but it's also why we spin. She banks. I had to go to the bank. I had to go to Connaught Place. That's all the zeros. I had to do the zero, Earth and Moon. I had to do... She banks like a month of Sundays on the tight round. It had to be Connaught Place because it's a tight circle. The moon is a small circle. When we go around our ellipse, there's a tight part, and that's when we're banking as we go round. So it's all about our travel around the sun, and more confirmation that there are old messages in this long trip and references to the Bible. And the other thing was that when I went to Rishikesh and I took studies with yogis that had Shivanandaji and Iyengar, Rudragada all over it, and I went to the ashram, the philosophy was the same. We've talked before. I had to do the in thing. I had to link this to JC. We've talked before through Central Asia to Europe. I don't know that the same people didn't even leave the pyramid. But anyway, there we go. All of this in a sort of a living legacy of the reason why it's put like this. You have to work it out. Why is it a gold headscarf? Why is it a gold headscarf after I've picked up my shawl when my hitchhikers can have something to eat? Ants can sit in here. They'll get in your ear and they'll explain it to you one day when you're ready. Because, of course, you're egotistical and you don't think ants are intelligent. You wouldn't think that they could actually do astronomy and monitor the trip around the sun. But the other thing is that when I went to Delhi and I stayed in the Roman court, they had a carved door there. They took 10 years to carve the door. 10 years. They carve into stone to have their legacy for future generations to understand the star map. They draw it in stone. They carved the door. The doorway, perception. Right.